Welcome back to the channel. This is Holden from Classroom Camp, and today I want to take a look at an article which seems to indicate that female teachers experience higher levels of stress and burnout than their male counterparts. Now, I want to answer a few questions. First of all, is this even true? Is it true that female teachers experience these higher levels of stress and burnout? And then if they do, what are the reasons why? What is it about the field of education or women that gives them more stress when they're at school? And then I want to also field that question to you guys as the audience and hear your perspectives. What do you think the reasons are? So make sure you stay all the way to the end of the video so that you can hear what I have to say, and then leave your comments down in the comment section below. But let's first go ahead and take a look at this article. Now, this is published on the 74million.org. The headline reads, "New study, female teachers much more stressed, burned out than male colleagues." Here's a line chart that we're going to look at here in a second, but this was published on August 4th, 2025, and it says, female teachers across the United States are significantly more likely to experience frequent job-related stress and burnout than male educators, according to new survey results. And that survey, you can actually find it here. It's published on RAND. The title is Teacher Wellbeing, Pay and Intentions to Leave in 2025. So this is a pretty up-to-date survey, as you can see. The RAND study found a 22-point difference in stress levels and a 6-point difference in the degree of burnout, gender disparities that have held constant since at least 2021. Female teachers are also almost twice as likely as similarly educated women in other professions to report frequent stress. These trends are worrying, not just for teachers, but also for students, said Elizabeth Steiner, senior policy researcher at RAND and the lead author of the report. And those numbers you can see indicated on this chart. The chart is titled Frequent Job-Related Stress of Teachers and Similar Working Adults by Gender. So on this graph, you'll see the 22-point difference between males and females over here. It looks like female teachers, just under 70% report stress on the job. And then here for male teachers, you have just under 50%. And then here you can look at these numbers as well, and these are the burnout numbers. So, you know, when I saw this article initially, I said, well, that's interesting. And why is that? Why is it that female teachers are experiencing more stress and burnout than males? And I kind of wrestled with this and decided that the first thing that I needed to do was actually find out if this is something that is exclusive to the field of education. So I went around, I started digging around, and I did come across this journal article here titled Gender Roles and Traits in Stress and Health. Pretty simple title. This is published by Eric Mayer sometime in 2015, and you can find this on the National Library of Medicine website. But this is a comprehensive, yes, June 9th, 2015 is when it was published. This is a comprehensive look at stress and the relationship between stress and gender. And going through this, it did indicate that women in general experience more stress than men. So stress and its effect on women is not something that is exclusive to education. Let's take a look at the abstract. It says women have a life expectancy advantage over men, but a marked disadvantage with regards to morbidity. This is known as the female-male health survival paradox in disciplines such as medicine, medical sociology, and epidemiology. Individual differences in physical and mental health are further notably explained by the degree of stress individuals endure, with women being more affected by stressors than men. So here we briefly explain the literature on women's disadvantage in health and stress. Beyond biological considerations, we follow with socio-cognitive explanations of gender differences in health and stress. We show that gender roles and traits, masculinity in particular, explain part of the gender differences in stress, notably cognitive appraisal and coping. Stress in turn degrades health implications are discussed. In conclusion, traditional socialization is advantageous for men in terms of health. So, this article just it goes flat out tells you that, look, women actually are, it's somewhat of a biological disadvantage, and one of the factors that contributes to higher levels or reduced levels of stress is actually masculinity. And it is shown that masculinity is associated with lower levels of stress. And that masculinity has nothing to do with gender itself, because you could be a male who is highly masculine, or you could be a female that is highly masculine. But what it comes down to is levels of testosterone, estrogen, and some other hormones. But in general, the biological makeup of men is such that it is conducive to lower levels of stress. So that's why you see these gender differences. But there are many other factors, including psychological factors and the way that in society men are brought up. For example, growing up, my father, if something became difficult, he told me to suck it up. That was his phrase. And, so men are kind of trained to just internalize things and just deal with things. And they have a fight or flight response. They have ways of getting their aggression out, whereas it seems that women tend to internalize things a little bit more than men, and that can lead to those higher levels of stress. So my main point in taking a look at that article is the fact that the first article, it is somewhat misleading in the fact that it talks about female educators and leads you to believe that, at least on first sight, that there is something about education. Something is going on with female teachers. They're more stressed, more burned out. So, maybe we need to do something. Maybe the system is against female teachers, something like that. I don't know. But that clearly is not the case, because this is something that we see across the board, that most likely women in other professions, they're also experiencing these high levels of stress. And if men are in those professions, they're, not experiencing as high of stress. So it's not just education. It's not just education. So I don't necessarily like this article because I think that it, like I said, it's a little bit misleading. But I also wanted to take a critical look and just base from my experience why I think women may be more apt to experience stress in education. And I had a hard time coming up with reasons, but I can give you at least one reason why I think this is. And I think that it relates to social dynamics. At the last place where I worked as a teacher, I had some female colleagues who would tell me that some of their colleagues were mean girls. And I found this fascinating, because the people that they were describing as mean girls were also people who I had personally no issues with. And why that is, I don't know. I try to be friendly and fair to anyone that I come in contact with. And maybe some people were mean girls, but they just didn't present that side to me. Honestly, I kind of keep my boundaries when it comes to coworkers. I don't involve myself in gossip. I actually intentionally avoid gossipy situations because, I think that gossiping is, in my opinion, a feminine type of thing to do. That's a feminine thing to do. Men don't necessarily sit around and gossip about people and try and badmouth and spread rumors. At least the men that I hang out with, that's just not our MO. But I have seen that sort of thing with women, and that's stressful. And that's the reason why, personally, I try to avoid those things, is because I think that it is stressful. It's tiring and exhausting getting into messy situations and drama. And so, like I said, I found some of my female colleagues talking about others being mean girls, that they weren't nice to them or didn't like them, that when they tried to greet certain people, those people flat out ignored them or just gave them a look or something like that. I never experienced that. I never experienced that. So if that is the case with females, and that's if that's how some women are, then I can understand why the job would be stressful, because not only are you dealing with children and the challenges that come along with that, but then you have your coworkers who may not necessarily be the nicest people and can make it difficult for you to fit in and to feel valued and appreciated within your job space. So, that is the one thing that I can say. And I think that, again, I have created good boundaries so that I can have good relationships with people. And that's something that personally does not affect me. Of course, there are people that I don't necessarily get along with. But those people I'm still civil with, and maybe I try to avoid or something. But I stay out of those situations. So that's all that I can really think of. And I don't understand what it is like to be a female, what it's like to be a woman. And so I can't fully speak to the experience of being a female educator. I know that there are way fewer males in the field than females. And, we kind of occupy our own space. We do our own thing. A lot are coaches, and I think that we handle the field differently. And because we are outnumbered, at least in my opinion, we kind of just try to stay in our own lane and do our own thing and not worry about all the extra. So that's me. But this question, I really want to field it to you, because what do you think? Of course, there is stress. Women experience more stress across the board, as I showed you with some of the evidence, the research that we looked at. But, if you're a female teacher and you think there's more to it, what are those reasons? Why is it that women tend to experience more stress, more burnout, specifically in the field of education? Let me know down in the comment section. Thank you for watching this video. Just remember that if you enjoyed it, to hit that like button, consider subscribing, sharing, all the buttons, all the things that helps me out here on this channel. Once again, thank you for watching. That's all I have for you this time, and I'll see you in the next one.